Hey guys, Sabersting here, back with another Clash Royale video. The last video that I did, you absolutely loved it, and we're going to be taking that deck and starting a new series today. This is episode 1 of my Road to Ultimate Champion. So the idea of this series is that you're going to be with me every step of the way during my climb in the trenches, going all the way up from champion to ultimate champion, because I feel like this is the part of the game where people struggle the most. You've got people in my clan especially who have been stuck at champ for ages, absolutely ages, champ and grand champ, and they just can't get past it. But hopefully you'll be able to learn a few things along the way. I'm going to be facing, this is what ladder looks like right now. I'm not going to be skipping out any of the stuff for just featuring all of my best wins and things like that. I'm going to be putting some losses here, and we get smoked by one guy in this video, and I'm going to be keeping that in because that's what Clash Royale is about, right? You win some, you lose some. There's no point in me just putting where I absolutely stomp on people. I need to have me getting cooked as well. So basically with this series, you're going to be able to see all of the meta decks that people are using, and potentially how the meta changes as you go up. What decks are we seeing more of, and what decks are we seeing less of, so you know how to be prepared for certain threats. Obviously, the whole amazing point of Clash Royale is that you can pick your own deck and make your own deck, and my deck is original. I don't think anyone else really has my deck, other than a few people that have copied it thanks to me and my videos in the clan. But the whole idea is that you should have an original deck. However, as we know, there is a meta. It's a game. There's always going to be a meta, and the most reliable win conditions, most reliable cards to use, and you're going to be seeing a lot of them in this video. Starting off, we've got a few games to get through, so I'm putting it at ×2 speed. Against this guy with the firecracker, he's got the mortar. Friendly fire. He's got the mortar and the Mega Knight. Now, the point about this, the mortar doesn't really work in his deck, to be honest. I don't really know why he's got it, but if he enjoys using it, fair enough. You know, I've just talked about original decks. The firecracker and the Mega Knight is the main thing you're going to be watching out for. You save your building. I think you need to run a building in this meta. It's so important. Whether you go with a bomb tower and try and stop those splashy decks like Royal Recruits and Graveyard, or you go for an Inferno Tower. I think these are the two clear options in the meta at the moment. Tesla, I'm not really a big fan of. Of course, you can cycle it a bit quicker, but I feel like it doesn't get the job done like Inferno Tower does, if you know how to use the Inferno Tower. Coming up against another Mega Knight in this next game. He's got the Mini P.E.K.K.A. We know how to deal with him. Goblins or skeletons can completely counter a Mini P.E.K.K.A. You can drag him all the way over to the other side. You can stick some archers in some nice positions, but unfortunately there will be times when you overcommit like then. I shouldn't have logged him. He wasn't going to get a hit on my tower, and he's just spammed the elite barbarians at the bridge and managed to do a really nice push against me there. Elixir management in Clash Royale is the #1 thing. The more you play, especially on ladder when it's quite competitive, you start to get a feeling I need to start counting elixir. If I've sent in a miner and spent 3, and he's countered it with my Mini P.E.K.K.A., then he's spent 4. However, that's a good spend for him, because it means he can then counter across the bridge with that Mini P.E.K.K.A. and use it as like additional. He's basically getting more value out of it. This is why defending with troops and keeping them alive and then counter pushing with them is absolutely crucial. As you can see here, we managed to weather the storm at the beginning with the elite barbarians and the Mega Knight. He's doing a load of stuff at the bridge with the minions, but we've got the Royal Delivery. This is why I would definitely recommend either the Royal Delivery or the archers or the fireball. Spells are absolutely crucial when making your deck. You want to make sure that you have 2. I feel like having 2 spells in this meta is very important. Either a log and a fireball, or a log and an arrows, maybe even a poison. There's a lot of poison going about here. We managed to get the job done. This is going to be a very tricky matchup because we're going against Graveyard here. I wanted to talk a little bit about how to play Graveyard. This guy is a very good Ultimate Champion. He's a very good Graveyard player with a solid deck. He's got a Tombstone which can distract my mortar 100% of the time, and even if he doesn't have that in cycle, he's also got the Knight which he can put on the other side to distract my mortar, and then something like an Ice Wizard as well, and then he's going to send in Graveyards. Now, the main thing that makes Graveyard decks so good is they will put a fairly tanky troop at the back, like a baby dragon or an evolved knight if you're that unfortunate, and then as soon as it crosses the bridge, they'll use a Graveyard, which means that the Princess Tower's locked onto the tank, and that will do infinitely more damage to your tower. What I like to do against Graveyard is I stick my Inferno Tower really, really high up on the bridge as soon as he's put that baby dragon down, or the knight, or the ice wizard. Even though he's put a knight down, and I'm countering it with an Inferno Tower, which is a -2 elixir trade, he's still going to be wanting to spam more stuff at the bridge, so it's going to get some value elsewhere. You need to get rid of that tank before he crosses the bridge, and then starts tanking for the graveyard. Archers do amazingly well at countering graveyard, but as long as there's no tank tanking for it. This is why he's caught us off guard here with the Evolved Knight. We tried to get a desperate rocket there and get things up, but he played really, really well there. Managed to use the tank, and I kept trying to use that Inferno Tower at the top, but it didn't work because he had loads of skeletons in the way. He was a very, very good player, but Graveyard is a 50-50. You want to get your building down up high as soon as possible, because if they have no one to cross the bridge to absorb damage, then the Graveyard on its own you can counter with tons and tons of things. A Royal Delivery on its own even does the job. Goblins on their own do the job. Any kind of small card which is going to deal with those skeletons, as long as the graveyard isn't backed up by anything, will sort it out. So you've got to deal with the things around it. This guy now is I'm coming up against Archer Queen, so I immediately think some kind of a Hogquake with the Archer Queen, but to my surprise, it ends up being Expo, which is very, very rare. I'm not really going to talk too much about dealing with Expo because, I mean, it's very rare at the moment. I mean, I like the Expo. I used to use it personally, but a lot of the old popular Expo meta decks are kind of out of the meta at the moment, and it's a very, very rare card. You don't see it very often, although it can be annoying, and because it's rare, that means it can be just as hard to deal with because you're not used to coming up against it all the time. He's got the Archer Queen, who obviously has that Veil ability where she does double damage or double the fire rate, and also makes herself invisible. For the Archer Queen, this is why I've got the Royal Delivery. He's such a jack of all trades. He's good against firecrackers dropping on top of him. He's good against battle rams. And the Archer Queen, he actually does a fairly solid job, especially if she's had a few ticks from another card like Archers or something like that. With me Expo, I'm not really too bothered about him because I've got the Rocket. Every now and then, I like to start off a game against Expo, testing the waters with an Inferno Tower right up close to it at the bridge. However, he's going to realise pretty quick that he can just start spamming stuff in front of the Expo and distract the Inferno Tower, which is why I always keep my rocket and make sure that I'm rocketing that Expo. If I can time it perfectly so he tries to stick something in front of it, then I can get even more value and we can start up a really big counter push. I'm going to be rocketing that Archer Queen and the Valkyrie there. It was just too much of a pain, but I've got my mortar there to already, at the bridge, kind of distract. As you can see there, that's exactly what I did. I stuck that Inferno Tower in early because I knew he was going to put that Expo at the bridge. I managed to spread out the damage between your towers. A technique which I like to do is spread out the damage between your towers. If someone's done a lot of damage on one side, this is like Clash Royale 101. If someone's pushing down one side all the time, you've got to try and get something going in the other lane, because then he will defend that other lane, and then you can counter it in that other lane, and then keep going down the other lane. You want to force them away from the lane that they've done loads and loads of damage to. Managed to beat him in the end with a miner and a rocket in the end to finish the job, although it was a very, very hard game, and he was a lovely player, giving me good luck and good game afterwards. Unlike that graveyard guy who was giving me Princess Yawn emotes and all sorts. I'm only toxic if they're toxic to me first, especially if they've got a meta slave deck, but can't complain. I don't actually mind graveyard. I think it's it's kind of easy but hard to master. I think it's a very, very good card, because cards where in theory you can counter them really easy, but then in reality they do a lot of work. I like those cards the best. These are cards like Graveyard, like the Mortar, like the Miner. In theory you can counter them with something small and cheap, but really it's about, in reality, how the deck plays. Up against Golem here, in the final game, if we win this, we're halfway to Grand Champ. I have no problems against Golem usually. However, the Bomber's had a bit of a buff, so this guy's using the Bomber. Okay, fair enough. We've got the Royal Delivery. We've also got the Log, so not too much of a problem. We've got a huge lead here. As soon as someone sticks a Golem in the back, I'm sticking my Mortar right at the top. I'm pushing straight away with that Mortar, and then I'm luring them behind with the Inferno Tower. Unfortunately, the Night Witch survives on a sliver of health, and I don't quite have enough elixir to be able to get that Royal Delivery down in time. So he's managed to bring it even. Now we're at a disadvantage, because even though we're quite even in terms of tower HP, he's got a Golem beatdown, which means in double elixir, he's very, very hard. very hard to deal with because he can just start spamming stuff behind his golem. We just about managed to tank that. We do a rocket just in case to get rid of that mega minion, which would have done a lot of damage. You don't really see the mega minion very much, and he started spamming stuff at the bridge to try and counter the mortar. This is where the Royal delivery comes in absolute clutch. We've done just about enough damage there to rocket it and finish the game. GG. Golem, not too hard because we've got the Inferno Tower. This is why I think the Inferno Tower is probably the best building. I've always got on with it the best. I think it's the best building at the moment, but I can see why you'd want to use the Bomb Tower as well. All depends on you and your cycle and your deck. As you can see there, we're now halfway to Grand Champion. So this video, we came up against Golem, managed to deal with that no problem. Graveyard, that was a bit of a stinker, but I'm learning still with the Graveyard. As long as you stick your buildings up high and stop that tank from crossing the bridge, you should be okay, and you can deal with the Graveyard with archers or goblins or anything quite small that can distract the skeletons. So that's going to be it for today's video. Halfway to Grand Champ. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can manage to get the job done in next video and manage to get there. So that's been it for me from today's video, and I will see you guys next video. Take care, guys.